want to add another streaming service on top of what I'm already paying for.
Right, yeah, it's one of those, hey guys, if you liked Karate Kid when you were a kid, subscribe to this service just so you can watch this thing to reignite your nostalgia. And I don't like Karate Kid that much. I mean, I like Star Trek enough that I subscribed to CBS All Access just to get Star Trek, but I'm not that big of a Karate Kid fan to want to pay a monthly subscription for that. I wanted to ask you, what do you think the theme of the film is? What do you think the lesson that Peter is supposed to have learned by the end of the film?
Well, I mean, it's a Spider-Man origin story, so obviously it's... No, I'm not even going to do that. That's stupid and too obvious even for this show. That is a good question. I mean, obviously, I know that all of like the John Hughes like high school coming of age movies, sort of are an influence on this movie. So like, growing up and learning that things. Honestly, I'm not.
Well, thanks, Strong Bad, for that message.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, it's totally a film about growing up and doing stuff and making fun of Strong Sad. Oh wait, that's my life.
Yeah. See, the really interesting thing for me, actually, as I think about that now, is like this movie actually doesn't have a ton to say about like the whole power and responsibility deal.
Yeah, it's
like that's not really a part of it.
Yeah, the main theme of kind of some of the other films of like the with great power comes great responsibility log line of all Spider-Man isn't like the underlying kind of, well, not even underlying in some of the other films. It's kind of punch you in the face theme of the film, right. Which is why I wanted to talk about that, because I think it's interesting that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he is learning. I mean, he is learning some responsibility about using his powers in this movie, and like what is and isn't responsible, to do with his powers. But like, as I think about like the situations where he's faced with those kinds of choices, like he's doing the right things already, like, because as he was about to go into the party and he didn't, and he's already, basically doing the right things. And so that's not really a struggle that we're having.
Well, I find interesting is that he's doing the right things, but for the wrong reason. Like his whole reason for going out and finding these bad guys and taking them out is not because they can do harm to people and hurt everyone, which of course they can, but his underlying motive is he wants to get in with the Avengers. Like, he wants to be an Avenger. And so the whole story until Stark takes away the suit is he's trying to get in good with Tony Stark. So he's doing the right things, but for the wrong reason. And then the twist at the ending is that he's now going to do the right things for the right reason, because it's not about the glory. It's not about being on the team, being one of the people of notoriety. It's about doing the right thing for the right reason, even though it's not necessarily the best thing for him. He's going to lose his girlfriend or whatever. Yeah. But he's going out to do it because Toombs needs to be stopped, not because it's going to get him a golden star with Stark.
Right. And I think that's probably a valid reading of the situation. As you're talking about that, though, like for me, as I think about what's going on there, and maybe this will get us into what, I think the theme actually is, like, I think it's less the case that he's really trying to get in with the Avengers and be famous and be an Avenger. The way I read it is like he knows that he has this ability to do good things, and he wants to use that ability to a greater extent than he is able to in his normal context. And maybe that's where it sort of intersects with the whole coming of age thing, where, as a young person, like, you have like all of this confidence in the things that you can do, and you know that you can just get out there and change the world if you just got the chance. And the older you get, the more you realize that the things that I can do in my everyday context are significant, and they are important. Even if they're not important to the world, they're important to the people around me. You know, they're important to my family. You know, it doesn't matter if I am not like, you know, a famous, you know, actor, or if I'm a famous, you know, whatever I would be famous at. Like, what's important is that I am involved and I'm present in the everyday context of my life, and that's actually going to be very important for the people who are around me and who care about me and who I have, let's go ahead and say, who I have responsibilities to.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that's where we can apply it sort of like on a like everyday, like real person level. But in terms of like the film and where Peter Parker is as a character, I think that what he ends up learning is that great power is not enough. You also need the wisdom to use that power. Like, great power does not automatically give you the right to do super fantastic things. Like, you have to earn the responsibility. Oh man, we're at power and responsibility anyway. Like, you're not given like the huge responsibility right off the bat just because you have the power. Like, you have to learn what that power actually means beyond like the physical facts of what it enables you to do.
I can see that. I think it's maybe a little bit of both. Because he has the scene with Ned about we've got a Spanish test today, and he's just like, no, I'm so far beyond high school right now. And so he's thinking about, he's like, well, Stark is moving and I'm probably not even going to come back here, because he's thinking about moving on and being something bigger when he still hasn't figured out that it's not about just going bigger and better. It's about doing things that matter to the people around you. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. The Stark has that nice line of, why can't you just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? And that has a nice, I mean, it sounds slightly condescending at the time, but it has, the ring of truth to it. It's like, be who you are for the people around you.
Well, and that's one of the cool things that has always been the case about Spider-Man as a character throughout his entire history, is that he's only involved in like the huge, like earth-shattering stuff by accident.
Is it Stark's fault that this whole movie happens the way it does? Because Stark gives Peter a taste of the apple in Captain America Civil War, He gives him that taste of kind of greatness, so to speak. Is that the kind of seed that germinates into this idea that Spider-Man has to be this big bad, I'm going to do big great things, as opposed to just helping the people around me and stopping cars from hitting buses, like I have been doing in my homemade suit?
Yeah. I mean, like, pretty much everything bad in the MCU is Tony Stark's fault, right? Like,
yeah.
I think that you're probably right to at least some extent in that. Like, and if not that part, then it's certainly his fault that that he's not, like, because he's kind of like in name or in theory, like kind of trying to be sort of a mentor.
Yes.
To Spider-Man, but he's really not.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, he's just like, call Happy, and then Happy doesn't do anything, or Happy doesn't like actually relate to him in the way that he kind of needs to be related to. And it was irresponsible, or I don't know if irresponsible is the right word, but it was a bad move for Stark to, get the authorities involved in the weapons deal and not tell Peter, it's handled, thank you for letting me know about this.
Yes, right. Because
the deal on the ferry is ultimately, I think, totally on Stark.
Yeah. Yes. Because he has Peter has the scene where he calls Happy and says, "Hey, I just found this weird weapons deal thing," and Happy totally just ignores everything that he's saying about it, or at least seems to ignore him, and then they never get back to him. There's this kind of one-way street thing that Tony Stark has going, not just with Spider-Man, but with other people as well. He's like, I'm going to do what I think is best.
Oh, yeah.
And even in the end...
Well, and I've said this multiple times before on the podcast, like, Tony Stark is about Tony Stark and nobody else.
Yeah.
Like, even when he's trying to do the right thing, he's still all about Tony Stark.
Yes. And I'm kind of hoping that they kill him off in Infinity War, and they kill him off in a way where he finally does something that's not about Tony Stark. So that
he was ready to, obviously, in Avengers,
right?
And it seems like that whole deal, like, kind of didn't stick.
Yeah, well, he never learns his lesson. Even in this film, he doesn't learn his lesson.
Yeah.
The thing that he's telling Spider-Man to do, which is be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and when Spider-Man proves that he has gained the wisdom of responsibility, or, you know, what to do for the right reasons, he's like, come on, we're gonna skip you out of the AAA leagues and put you straight up into the majors. And Spider-Man says, wisely, no, I think I need to stay where I am. And so Tony isn't even following his own advice.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of getting also at what I said a minute earlier about where Spider-Man best operates. Like, he is a hero that works on a local level, and not just like works as it operates, but like his character is more effective on sort of a local, like, smaller, more grounded level.
Yes.
Than I think he is in like a really big, like, cosmic, you know, whatever kind of level. Just, you know, and obviously just for purely practical reasons of his power set, like, you don't, like, Spider-Man doesn't go against Thanos. Like, that's not how that works.
Right.
Because he'll only last for a couple of seconds, and that's not a very interesting story.
It could be a really good splash page.
Yeah. Yeah, it would.
One of the things that making a DC comparison, if Spider-Man was to be a DC character, he would totally have a Netflix series. He wouldn't be getting a movie. You've got Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, all of those kind of lower level street people.
Yeah.
And that's really what Spider-Man is in the Marvel universe. He's a street level hero. He's not the big intergalactic. And if Spider-Man were Daredevil, then that's exactly where he would be. But since Spider-Man is Spider-Man, you know, he can't just be relegated to a Netflix series. Like, he needs his own movie. Right, yes. Which is kind of sad, because I think Spider-Man would be awesome in a Netflix series.
Yeah, I think it would be great, but I think you would need a better budget than those series have to actually make an effective Spider-Man series.
True, because that's one of the great things about this movie is the use of Spider-Man's ability to stick to surfaces. I think they do it so much better than any of the other films. Like, just the one scene where he comes in to his apartment and he climbs through the window and he uses his foot, like the tip of his foot, to close the window, and then goes down, shoots a web to close the door, and then comes down with one hand holding the ceiling, comes down into frame. And that's such a great use of Spider-Man's powers. And it's also a great reveal that Ned's sitting there with the Death Star. Also,
that was pretty great.
Complete side note, there is no way that he would have been able to make that Death Star in just that one night. Having one giant Starship Enterprise Lego block set, well, it's not Legos, it's Mega Blocks, but having that one huge set, which is about the same size, as the Death Star. That took me days to make, not just an hour or two sitting down.
Well, he did say, and oh my gosh, like we are the